It's almost 8, 1 minute to 8 to start our Facebook Live. Good evening. How are you all doing tonight? My name is Ligia Houben, and I am very happy to be with you, bringing a message about grief and multiple losses. I understand this is a topic that it is not the easiest topic. However, it happens to all of us. And it is a topic very close to my heart. If you happen to be facing the loss of a loved one, my heart goes out to you. And what made me bring this topic tonight? Because I already did it in Spanish. I am from Nicaragua, so I did it in Spanish. I'm Hispanic. And now I am bringing this message to you because I found it to be essential, important to talk about losses, especially because of the situation we are having now. The situation with the pandemic, with COVID-19 that is happening to us. So how are we dealing with this? Because it has been a change. It has been a shift. And many times when there are changes, there are also losses. And I understand that in our society, we avoid talking about losses. We want to stay away from them. However, it happens to all of us. You may remember when I did the Facebook Live about death and dying, to talk about death, I also mentioned that in our society, we stay away from talking about death. And what has happened with this pandemic, with the COVID-19, that topic, death, losses, grief, sadness, anxiety, all those things have come to the surface. They are real. And we need to have the conversation. We need to have the conversation because if we do not confront, if we do not call it by its name, what's happening to us, and we leave it on the shelf, it's going to stay there, do you think? It's going to be here. Maybe we do not face it, but it's going to be here. And it may bother you physically. You may somatize it. Emotionally, you may be disturbed with it. Socially, now we are physically distant. But socially, it may really affect you as well because you can go very deep into being alone, into not wanting to connect with anybody. And that can also be detrimental. And also the spiritual dimension. It can also affect us when we do not process our grief. It can affect us spiritually. Our ability to forgive, our ability to be grateful, to love. All those things are very spiritual. So the topic, multiple losses, because this is grief and multiple losses. And this is a concept that I talk very often. I did a seminar for PESI, which is an organization that gives continuing education credits to mental health professionals. So for 5 years, I was doing this seminar, Transforming Grief and Loss. And when I talked, with the mental health professionals, we even said that it is very challenging to talk about grief, even for them, because it's a topic that can be very sensitive. And we talked about the importance of recognizing when there are multiple losses. We are facing a situation now when this can be happening. And I'll explain to you what is multiple losses. If you're a client of mine or if you have been in one of my seminars, you may recognize the term. So we're going to be exploring and expanding on it. Multiple loss. Let's say that there has been the loss of a loved one. A woman lost her husband. So that would be the primary loss. Primary loss. And then out of that loss can come secondary losses. And what can this be? Well, loss of a friend, loss of a protector, loss of if he was the, supporting the family, so that loss of financial security, maybe because of that, there's a loss of home as well. So there can be many losses. Those are what we call secondary losses out of the primary. And it is important that we go there to understand ourselves. Because now with the situation, we want to know what losses we may be experiencing. If you were in this room with me, I would ask you, what losses are you facing now? Because there is the loss, the loss of a loved one, if that person got the virus, the loss of health. But there are other losses, the loss of a job, so many jobs, which have been lost, financial losses, and other intangible losses, such as the loss of hope, the loss of freedom to make decisions that we want to go here, to go there, to what do we wear. So that loss of freedom that we are so used to that can be taken for many people, give a sense of loss as well. Loss of hope, loss of security. So all these type of losses may bring us a sense of being out of control. And it is important for us to know as well that things happen to us where we do not have control over them. What we always have control over is how we handle them, how we respond to them. We do not want to lose sight of that. It's interesting because sometimes I have clients that come because they want, let's say, to achieve a goal. They want to make something happen. And they feel that they cannot do it. So we do something that is called history of losses. Because sometimes I recognize that maybe there has been a loss in the past that was not processed, and that person may be stuck. So we do that, and I'm going to share with you how you can do that yourself, because it can be of great help for this situation now that can take you back to a loss that you may have not processed in the past, and with what is happening now, that loss may be back to the surface, because it happens with losses when we do not process them. They do not stop being there. Because remember, what we ignore doesn't cease to exist. It is only repressed. So with this exercise, history of losses can give you so much awareness. And I'll tell you how it is, in case you don't know. You start, you write like a timeline, and you start here with the loss you may be experiencing at this particular moment. Remember that losses is not only the loss of a loved one, which is so huge. Many of you may know that I entered this world to help the bereaved, the grieving, because I lost my father when I was 12 years old. So I know in my heart how painful that is. However, I also know that we can make that choice with so much love to transform that loss, to transform that suffering into honoring. Just always, always keep that in mind, okay? So you start to do the history of losses with the loss you are experiencing at this moment. And then what you do is you go back in time to the first loss you remember. And what you do is you write down the type of loss, your age, how you responded to that loss, and very important as well, how your significant others responded to your response. So do that exercise from the first loss you remember up to the loss you are experiencing now. Because what I want to make sure is that you are aware that maybe in the past there was a loss that you never processed, and now that is coming to the surface and is bringing more pain even to any loss you may be experiencing at the moment, okay? So when you do that exercise, there's also something else that you will be able to discover. And that is if you have developed a pattern in how to deal with losses. That is also so important to know, because that is going to give you a light. If you don't like how you handle losses, then you can always learn new ways to handle them. And that is something that I want to share with you today, okay? For example, the first thing that you can do when you are experiencing an emotion, a strong emotion, because let's keep in mind that grief, when we talk about grief, and we imagine even a person who is grieving, most people imagine that person that is crying. Many people. However, it is not only that. We experience other feelings as well, other emotions, such as, anger, guilt, fear, regret. All those emotions can be experienced. So what I want you to do is, if you are facing a loss, if you are grieving, to just take a piece of paper and pen, pencil, and write down. Acknowledge the emotion. What am I experiencing now? What am I experiencing at this moment? Acknowledge, recognize the emotion. After that, validate it. What is making me feel this way? Do not ask yourself why. Why am I feeling this way? Because with why, it's like kind of inquisitive. However, if you ask, what makes me feel this way? You go deeper. You go to the source of that emotion, and you want to connect with your emotions. We can be so disconnected at times. It is essential to connect with who we are, with how we feel. So, first, acknowledge the emotion, then validate it. Then, as you validate it, then you can process it. And how can you process it? You can, write in a journal, or write a letter, or you can even write on sticky notes. I was looking around because I have a box around there, that what you can do is have a box, and then you can write sticky notes, the feeling, what you are experiencing, and you can just put it in a box. And put it in a box, because what you are doing is you are releasing. You are releasing. You are just getting in touch with those emotions. You are processing it. And then, which is the fourth step, you are releasing the emotion that is disturbing you. Let's keep in mind that when we have an emotion, that emotion is there because there is a thought that came before that emotion. If you have, been with me in, as a client, seminars, if you have heard messages that I do in videos in YouTube, you may remember that I like to use a lot the power of our mind. I believe that our mind is powerful, and I strongly believe in the power of our thoughts. We are what we think. So, how can we connect those thoughts with our emotions? For example, if you notice that you are feeling sad, go to your thoughts and ask yourself, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? Because that thought produced that emotion. And that, based on how you are feeling, you are going to behave. So, remember, thoughts, emotions, actions. That stands for T. Thoughts, emotions, actions. Based on how you think, you feel. And based on how you feel, you act. That is going to help you tremendously because, as we said before, many things that happen to us in life, we do not have control over. What is happening in the world now with the COVID-19, we do not have control over that, what happened. We can always have control in how we handle it and in our thoughts. Our thoughts is the only thing that we can have 100% of the time control over. So go there every single time that you may feel like disturbed, that you experience a strong emotion. Go there and notice and write it down. Observe your thoughts. Observe them. You can write them down. And even further, think about an emotion you would like to experience instead of the one you are feeling. Let's say that you are angry and you want to feel peaceful. So, because that is the emotion you want to experience, so go to your thoughts and have peaceful thoughts. I can be in peace. I want to be in peace. Also, something else I want to tell you. Always go to the I want to, I can, instead of I have to. I have to be in peace. Does that work? Well, not really, because you're imposing that on you. However, if you say to yourself, I want to be peaceful, that message, you are making a choice, because we can always make choices. And based on that thought, that is the emotion you're going to experience. We can always make choices in life. When we experience the loss, we can make a choice on how to handle that loss. Because you can choose not to be defined by that loss. Not to be defined by that loss. And the beauty is that you can make that choice once you make that decision. It has to come from your heart. For example, if I have a client that tells me, let's say that she lost a loved one. And she says to me, instead of transforming that suffering into honoring her loved one, as we said at the beginning, if she tells me, Ligia, I want to stay suffering. I want to stay in this place. I would never tell her, don't stay there. Don't say that. No, I will never do that. I would accompany her. I'll be there. And I would ask her, what makes you wanting to stay in that place? Because maybe she didn't even know what made her stay there. Because sometimes when we lose a loved one, sometimes we may think that the only way we can stay in touch or stay close to our loved one is through suffering. And the moment that we can come into understanding that we can always be close to our loved one through honoring them, that changes the story. That changes the story. My father died so many years ago. I was 12, 48 years ago. And you know what? He lives in my heart. Because when we lose a loved one, the relationship does not end. It gets transformed. So before we go to the end, to this moment that we have been connecting, that we have been sharing, I want to leave you with the Serenity Prayer. I find that prayer to be so powerful in times of loss, in times when we struggle and we may resist to that pain that we feel. And it goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I send you all my love. I send you a hug. And always remember, as you transform your loss, you transform your life.